very, very critical. Getting down to the wire.
Well, let me just say this, David. David and I met through my friend Scott Bennett, and I had helped get Scott out of prison over in Germany on trumped up bullshit charges because he was exposing the fact that our own intelligence agencies were funding terrorist groups and through the banking system and like that. And so while he was free, and then he did stuff into Iran and into the Russian side of the Ukraine situation. And after Scott passed away, and he had tried to put David and I together a couple of times before he passed, and we never really got a chance to actually do a mind meld. And then in the aftermath of Scott's passing, David and I had opportunity to work together on some stuff. And David, I'd done so much of the financial stuff, and Scott was doing the financial stuff. And in getting into it with David, comparing notes, well, shoot, David's working on school bond stuff. I was looking at other stuff. And it just really, the work that David has done is world class. And you've been in it, what, David, really at this point, probably 11 or 12 years, really? Just all in.
Yeah, all in would be since about August of 2016. That's when that's when the rent started to fall apart.
Well, I'll just add this for people that aren't aware. You're a California attorney and had actually been working as an attorney to school districts for quite a long time. And so you're actually, sit on, as an advisor to school districts. So this is not virgin territory. You've been at it for a very long time and realized that there were some problems. And then as you're going against the problems, they're wanting to shut you down and send you away. Am I saying it right?
That's correct. Yeah.
You've got a history that is the moon. You've been trying to do the right thing on this for a very long time. And then the thing that just blew my mind, you had everything dialed in, were ready to go to war, and COVID started right as your cases were moving into the discovery phase to expose the frauds in the school bond stuff, which is so severe. Just school bond fraud all by itself is adequate. It's easily on the low side, 10 times worse than what happened in 2008 with the financial crisis that is so fresh in so many people's minds. It's at least 10 times as bad, depending on who you're talking to and what part of the country. And it's more like 100 times as bad, and could take the whole country down. And I think the plan has been to take us out right as we get into exposing the criminality in other areas of our government, and this would just shut us down, distract us, we would move forward. So anyway, you're doing amazing work, and you'll be doing a presentation again at this Fraud Fighter Summit that I'm doing in mid-June, 15th, 16th, 17th at the Ahern. So you're like a central piece in the whole presentation.
Yeah, very good. And we have that link for the Ahern event in the description box, guys. And Juan, you are so hot on this stuff. I remember, I had Sean Taylor, and we did a lot of shows together in the beginning, and you picked him up and you moved into the next level. So he was exposing the mortgage fraud on a massive scale, and now you're, helping to move the awareness to the school bond fraud. So, well,
before we get to David, you brought up Sean Taylor. Let me just tell you, Sean Taylor, a warrior's warrior out there in Tennessee, they've gone after him legally in a bunch of venues because he's exposing the mortgage frauds and across the world, across the country, as a mechanism to fund a lot of this mischief against the country, groups and things like that. What David's found is a mechanism where they're funding a lot of these political groups, through various aspects of the school bond fraud. It's not just one thing; it's 20 things. They got more scams going. They can't even keep track of all the scams they got going within the bond fraud. But Sean has been right there, presented to attorney generals from a number of states. Yep. Nobody has refuted anything he's presented, and yet just last week, before Bondi was let go, they pushed him to the curb again. And it was very frustrating. It's very frustrating for Sean. I mean, he wears this on his sleeve. He's like David. He's just lived and breathed this for many, many, many years. And so he's very frustrated. However, there's things that are happening even in the last few hours over at Department of Justice that are turning the corner again on new stuff, going after all these persons and operations that are fraudulent. In fact, here's how wild it's gotten over at Department of Justice. Today, Todd Blanche announced and had people at Department of Justice announced that going after the Southern Poverty Law Center, which is a very left-leaning operation. And they're going after them for creating false records and then encouraging donations based on these false records that were supposed to show how police officers and police departments were going against, these protest groups, and that they were essentially creating false data and putting it out to people to get them to, make donations. And so now they're going to go after them and prosecute them for essentially a type of racketeering where they were producing false histories and then promoting it to do their political stuff. So the tide's definitely turning over there since Bondi's left, and Todd Blanche is auditioning to try and be the permanent attorney general. I don't know if he can go far enough, hard enough, fast enough to make that happen. Peter Tickton wants the job too, but we'll see.
So David, let's. I'm gonna pull up that presentation. That information sent me, and then we can go through that if you'd like.
And folks need to understand. So David and I, because I have a very bizarre schedule, and it doesn't follow any pattern. Even like this morning, I think it was 3:00 in the morning, David, and you had something new you uncovered. You're at this 24/7, just like the rest of us. You're middle of the night, and I just found this. Wait! You're not going to believe it. Hold on. It's amazing. You're really in the thick of it, David.
Yeah. So what you have up is the official statement for the Blue Lake Union Elementary School District, which is up in Humboldt County, California, up north, just south of Del Norte County. It's one of 32. I think it's about 32 districts in Humboldt County. So this is just a very small school district, and it's an elementary school district. So it has grades kindergarten through 6th grade. It could have up to 8th, but I'm just giving you the basic background. So this is Blue Lake.
And by the way, David, just tell people how many school districts are there in California? You have 54 or 58 counties, but how many school districts do you have in California?
Yeah, there are 58 counties in California and approximately 940 different school districts. That includes elementary school districts, high school districts, and unified school districts, which are a combination of both. So there are 900.
And you could have, and every one of them has the ability to try and float bonds, get taxpayers locked up into them, and you can have overlapping districts and bonds and everything. It's just insane.
Yeah, so what's interesting about this, let me just kind of walk you through the basics. If you'll notice, it's almost a $2 million issuance. The second sentence on the first paragraph, not the upper paragraph, but under the date of delivery, it says the bonds were authorized at an election of the registered voters of the district held on June 8, 2010, which authorized the issuance of $2 million principal amount of general obligation bonds for the purpose of financing the addition and modernization of school facilities. So this is one issuance which has to be approved by voters. So what happens is basically a board of education gets together, produces a resolution. In that resolution, it proposes the measure that it's going to have the $2 million, and then that measure is put on the ballot, and then the voters get an opportunity to vote on it. If it passes, it gives the school board the authority to issue bonds up to $2 million. For example, this is Blue Lake Union Elementary School District for $2 million. The same process holds true for Los Angeles Unified School District when it runs a $9 million bond or a $9 billion bond, or for Long Beach Unified or for San Diego Unified. Bonds can be hugely, like 1.5 million to up to 9 billion. So this is a small district, but this is typical of some of the actions that have taken place in California. So they're issuing a $2 million bond. On the next page, you see the maturity schedule. You have the maturity schedule available?
Yes.
Okay. So you see here there are various components. You see there's $1,755,000 in current interest bonds. That's in the top section. And then the maturity schedule over the left from 2011, 2014, 15, 16, then go over to the right and you see 17, 18, 19, and 20. So there's about 130,000 of that 1,755,000 that are current interest bonds. On top of that, you have 1,625,000 in term bonds due out in 2047. So the serial bonds are the ones from 2011 through 2020, and the term bonds are those in their accruing interest and accruing value until August 1 of 2047. Now, underneath that, if you go back to the first page for a second, you'll see it's 199,264.40. Let's go back to the second page now. And here's the additional 244,264.40 in capital appreciation bonds. Now, these capital appreciation bonds are going to be issued right after the official statement is published. The capital appreciation bonds are issued, and they're issued from 2021 through 2040. You'll see that on the left. Those are the maturity dates. It's going to be maturing. So we basically know that the bonds are running and accreting interest for 10 years before they even start maturing. The first one maturing in 2021. Now, if you look at the accretion rates, it starts at 4.39%, goes to 4.66, 4.89, 5.12, 5.35, 5.7, and then suddenly jumps to 12%.
Wow.
Okay, that is a stunning increase. So what happens is for basically $254,000, $244,000, the district has to pay back over $1,820,000 30 years later, because this bond is taking place. I forget the date of it, but it's around 2009, 2010, and here it is coming due in 2040. The total amount would be $1,820,000, which is basically you're paying back the full amount that you borrowed at the beginning as a maturity value, not counting all the other money that's been paid back under the current interest bonds and the term bonds. So that means that the capital appreciation bonds are at a charge nearly 7 times more than the initial amount. And this is going all over the state of California.
So this is where the fraud is, where they're upping the accretion rate. Because normally a bondholder is going to get a certain amount. Who's getting all this other money?
Well, that's a good question. Who knows? I mean, this money, there are principal parties to the transaction. There's the issuer, which is the school district itself. Mm-hmm. There's district counsel, who looks over the documents. There's also bond counsel. Let's look at see who go back to the first page. Let's look at the bond counsel. We'll see it is a little more up. It is. Well, it doesn't. That's strange. It doesn't have bond counsel in here.
It says San Diego, California Bond Counsel.
Yes, GCR LLP. Go to about the third or fourth page in. Did I send you the whole document?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. One more page. The masthead. Here it'll have the financial advisor, bond counsel and disclosure counsel, which is GCR LLP. I've never even seen that as a firm before for as bond counsel or disclosure counsel. So the financial advisor is Caldwell Flores Winters, Inc., and the treasurer tax collector is a paying agent. So whoever GCR LLP is, that's your bond counsel. So they're taking a look at it as bond counsel and disclosure counsel. And then you have the underwriter who's doing the deal, which is Stone and Youngberg in this instance. So that question should be directed to those entities, GCR LLC and Stone and Youngberg.
Yeah, I was reading through this, and I thought it was very interesting. The Assured Guarantee Municipal Corp makes no representation regarding the bonds or the advisability of investing in the bonds. In addition, AGM has not independently verified, makes no representation regarding, and does not accept any responsibility for the accuracy or completeness of this official statement or any information or disclosure contained herein or omitted herefrom, other than with respect to the accuracy of the information regarding AGM supplied by AGM and presented under the heading bond insurance. So it's basically they're disqualifying themselves from any accountability.
Errors, omissions, misrepresentations, correct.
Yeah, crazy.
So this is a classic example of $254,000 purchasing bonds and getting paid back $1,820,000 30 years later. It's an unbelievable investment.
It's crazy. And,
and this is going on all over California.
They'll reissue them and add on to them and make more money come into them and all kind of crazy stuff, right?
Yeah, there's, I'm not going to speak for what the districts do. They know that better than I do. I mean, I know where to look, and I know what to examine and what to check on, but frequently, the money under Proposition 39 is required to be spent solely on capital projects, financing. The funds are for financing capital projects, buildings, facilities, and the like. So it's basically for infrastructure for the school districts, the housing of children. And the money is restricted for those uses.
That's crazy. Yeah, I remember going to school, and we went to school in old buildings that had been there for decades and decades. Like some of them, like my parents went to. So it's kind of these buildings can last a long time, obviously, but they keep rebuilding and building on more. But the birth rate in America is way down, and there's basically a lot of people, especially in California, that are leaving California. So you don't have as many students as you used to.
Yeah, you have a lot of declining enrollment taking place throughout the state. You also have an influx of new immigrants from all sorts of countries that have made their way into California, and you have a lot of expenses associated with teaching them English and basic skills, reading, mathematics, etc. So there are a lot of demands placed on the school districts, and I don't think all of this money is being directed toward facilities.
No, definitely not. And new computer systems and all that, because they say that in the outline, what they're going to be spending it on. I'm like, okay, and you have like 287 students. You need $2 million for all these computers and everything. It's like, that's pretty suspect.
Yeah, they had, in fact, LA Unified had a problem where they spent bond funds on computers. Bond funds are supposed to finance projects over 25 years at least. Under the government code, bonds are issued with a lifetime expected or for up to 40 years. So whenever these bond funds are being used, the idea is the project's going to be 25-year project, 40-year project, or even longer. It could be, a stadium that could last for hundreds of years. But as the facilities are constructed, there need to be complete and accurate records. There needs to be a bond oversight committee. There should be auditing, performance and financial auditing taking place on an annual basis as required under Proposition 39. And I just don't think all of the districts are thoroughly familiar with the requirements of the Strict Accountability and Local School Bonds Construction Act of 2000. They're pervasive requirements. You have to be in compliance. Otherwise, you're risking the bonds being the tax-exempt nature of the bonds.
Yeah, and we were talking earlier before the show, and Mitch Vexler's been on my show and has talked about that he was at the bond fraud, and I've seen him on several other shows over the years. He's really, outlining how property taxes, basically, they're defrauding everybody through property taxes to pay all those costs that you outlined there. It's insane. So that fraud that you just exposed here is being paid by people in California with their property taxes, which continually go up. And there was somebody just made a comment in here. Let me put it back up. We have another 4% school tax increase here after the max they were allowed to increase last year. So this is something that continually increase the taxes. And when someone comes in and assesses the tax or the tax rate, property tax rate, insurance goes up too.
The tax rate continues to go up.
Yeah.
But the percentage of tax, there are caps on how much tax can be applied to property. But the duration of that tax just continues and continues, and it expands with the increase of property values.
Yeah.
In fact, if you go back and look, it's interesting because Eli Broad, who back in I think he's from, I forget the name of the housing company that he started with, but it was, he was quite instrumental in recruiting Governor Roy Romer to come in and head up LAUSD. Well, Governor Roy Romer was hired as a superintendent, but he didn't have a teaching credential, and he didn't have an administrative credential, and both are required to be a superintendent under California law.
Yeah, seems to be another thing they do. They bring in these criminals that don't have any, reason to be there. They have no credentials, like you're talking about. They're just criminals that they stick in there, and they know that they'll let them get away with their fraud. And that's one of the things that Mitch Vexler was saying. Don't stop paying your property taxes. Go after the fraud. That's how we win. That's how we beat this.
Yeah, well, it's, the problem is that the people that are involved are not really criminals. They really don't understand what's taking place. I'll give you an example. There was Alan Burson, who was a United States attorney for San Diego area, a very well-respected guy. He went in to serve as the superintendent of San Diego Unified for a period of about 10 years. And in the first 10 years, he was about 9 years, but in the first years he was there, he issued year after year millions upon millions of dollars in school bonds, and those issuances were almost always coupled with a large 10% or so of capital appreciation bonds. In his first issuance, the whole thing was capital appreciation bonds. But I just think, this is not a guy with any criminal intent. I just don't think he understood what the effect of the issuance of such a high degree of capital appreciation bonds, the amount of debt that it would impose upon the taxpayers.
Yeah.
So, but you've got Roy Romer, you've got Alan Burson, you've got he's a candidate for Los Angeles mayor. Oh, Austin Butner, who's a billionaire who came in to head up LA Unified School District. He was in from, I think, 2018 through 2021, passed a $7.5 billion bond, approximately that number. And he didn't have a teaching credential. He didn't have an administrative credential. And he's in there running the district like it's a business.
Wow. Crazy. And you were talking before the show, you were involved in this a little bit, but you had to get out because it was just so corrupt. You couldn't stand it. So that's kind of the way it is. So Juan, do you have any other, if you're still there, do you have any other thoughts on this? I guess we might have lost him.
Yeah.
So David, any other thoughts on this?
Well, the only thing I would stress is that Proposition 39 requires a Citizens Bond Oversight Committee, which is supposed to be in place. They're supposed to be well-trained. They're supposed to be educated on performance audits, on financial audits, so that group can report anything that goes wrong in the expenditures of bond proceeds, so they can report it to the public. But in my experience, the Citizens Bond Oversight Committees are just filled with friendly appointees who just accept and sign off on the documents put in front of them. So it's very disturbing because I don't think they're performing the duties that they're supposed to execute while in the position.
So how do we defeat this? I mean, you had some ideas, but you weren't sure that you wanted to share those yet. But any thoughts? Citizen activity? What do you think?
Well, the first thing, I mean, there's number one, the counties. I think the 58 counties of the state of California have to be very adept at looking over the credentials of the people that are running the school districts. They should be experienced in education. They should have earned a teaching credential. They should have also earned an administrative credential. They should have been in the process of administration of the school district for 5 to 10 to 15 years before they move into the positions where they can affect and impact the expenditures of the school district and the direction of the school district. So what's very hard is that in California, 50% of our budget goes toward education, and the amount of tax money that flows into education is just phenomenal. The most interesting aspect of this, from my perspective, is that people are forced to pay taxes to support education. Now, I understand that because you have to provide, you have this duty to provide education, because the premise is that the promise of education is the instruction of wisdom. So we want to transmit the awesomeness, the discernment, the knowledge, the prudence, the righteousness, the spirituality, and the understanding of everything. And if you advance reading, if you advance mathematics, if you have mentoring, then you're helping the students out there learn about their ethical values and about their personal obligations and about their personal conduct. And I just see the direction of education in the state of California going off the rails. I mean, it's just off the rails entirely. And it's very disturbing. It's very upsetting. And, the impact it has on people's lives is truly disruptive. I mean, I think it's just a shame.
Yeah, definitely. So what do you think the end date for this is? Because a lot of people are saying we're close to the end now. What are your thoughts? Well, for California.
Yeah, well, if Vice President Vance and his team get into California, I think they're going to be shocked at the nature and extent of the school bond fraud that has taken place. I believe that we're looking, the 2030s are going to be very difficult, because this window for the bonds was between 1993, when capital appreciation bonds were permitted, through 2014, January of 2014, where they were restricted. But the impact of those bonds issued between 1993 and 2014 involves just billions of dollars. And that's going to start hitting, and starting to hit now in the 2020s and the 2030s, because those bonds can be issued for between 1993 and 1998. They could be issued for as far out as 40 years. And from 1998 forward, for education bonds, they can be issued for up to 25 years. But in some exceptions, you can still go out 40 years. So the games that occurred between 1993 and 2013 are going to start hitting hard in the mid 30s and mid 40s, and it's just going to be, there's going to be hell to pay, to be honest with you. And I think it's just going to be is going to make education a real luxury when it should be available to everyone for free.
Yeah, definitely. All right. So, Juanito, come in, Juanito. We'll just, I don't know what happened to him, but we'll call it here. All right, David, any last thoughts on the bond fraud, school bond fraud? I know you've done several presentations. You've done it for Lewis Herm, at Lewis Herm's event. That was fantastic. And you did it at the bond fraud in Vegas. You're going to be there for the next one in June, mid-June. You're going to come in and bring in some more information. I mean, you just found this latest one. You're like, oh my God, here's another one. So, how many more before people wake up? Do you think?
I think it's going to come at a great personal cost. I believe that I have a friend of mine. I refer to him as Oppenheimer because he knows more about bonds than anybody on the planet, in my opinion. And we're both shocked at what we're finding. I mean, on a daily, weekly basis, we just keep finding more and more and more. And it's so disturbing because there are, like I said, there are 58 counties, 937 districts in the state of California. And we're not even talking about the community college districts, that operate under the same rules. So this is very alarming. It's very disturbing, and it's an opportunity to have our county office holders take hold of the problem and make sure that our superintendents have degrees, make sure they have credentials, make sure our teachers have degrees, make sure they have credentials, and let's keep education pointed in the right direction, transferring knowledge, wisdom, and understanding.
Very good. All right, David. Thanks so much for coming in and sharing.
Things are starting to just, break loose everywhere. And I think I used it the other night with you, Matt, where, I was discussing, you see the kid with his fingers in the dike, the old story. I think Dutch kid, and he's got his fingers in the dike. And you think, well, how's that going to help? And the reality is that if you've plugged those holes, the water isn't flowing. You're holding it in check. But if you pull your finger out of one of those holes or multiple of them, what happens is the erosion of the water passing through that hole or crack. And pretty soon, the crack is a fissure. It's more than just a trickle. It becomes a stream, and the erosion can just break the wall in a dam, and all of a sudden it's coming apart. And so what's happening right now is you have a number of people. Most of them were suppressed and couldn't come forward. Some of them that are coming forward, like in this case, at least one of the persons, as far as I'm concerned, they didn't do stuff earlier because their nest was being feathered. But now they want to get on the right side of history. And so do I knife them in the back for that, or do I accept that, as they would say it, it would have been not just career fatal, but maybe elsewise fatal to have made any kind of a think or to jump forward or something prior to this. But they feel the safety that things do appear behind the scenes within that specific agency to be going, or agencies actually too, in a direction where they want to make sure their side is understood. In other words, they want to be on the right side of whatever's coming. So that's probably not unique. I'm not going to kick a gift horse in the mouth if we can get the, information into the right slot, and it aids other stuff that's already there. I mean, it's all going to be coming out. When the dam breaks, I mean, it really just comes unglued. Something finally washes away some area of support, and especially if you think of these great earthworks type dams that are common in the middle and eastern side of the country more so than the west, of these huge earthen dams. And if they get an area that gets weak, gets washed out, it's toast. I mean, the whole thing comes out, and once the water starts flowing, and that's what we're really looking at in the not just ill run, but criminally operated sections of some of these federal agencies where there was criminality involved on the part of individuals. Sometimes one thing I think we have to do is not, a lot of times people talk about, how the government is bad, how the federal government is bad. No, oftentimes it's not necessarily. I mean, there's times like with Federal Reserve and like that where there's something wrong with the basic concept of the whole agency itself. But other times it's because you have criminal activity and mischief going on by individuals using their zone of access to do the stuff that they're doing. The agency, the rest of the personnel get tainted, but the reality is it's usually a relatively small number who are the real monsters in the situation. And so we go get them, clear them out, and then try to get things back on an even keel. So there you go.
Hey, Juan, I was just going to tell you, I think before I got in the show, Bannon had me on about 5:15 or so Eastern time this evening. We talked about the coalition and Trump's the election integrity army and what we've been doing. Mark Cook and others mostly Mark, but others going around the country educating folks on the election ecosystem. And then we talked about the summit and what the purpose was, and Tina, and dedicated to her. And he said, "Wow," he says, "you're having the world premiere of Dark Horse," which I told Warren, "You made this happen." And I think I'm recounting what Bannon said, because he's friends with Caviezel as well. And he said Caviezel thinks it's his most important work or best work. And I'm thinking, I don't know how you get better than Jesus, but even, I guess Caviezel's very impressed. Oh.
Well, let me say this. The intensity, the work to portray Christ in the crucifixion, and I know Jim prayed about this and sensed that this was something that he was called to do, because there's been a number of actors over the years that have portrayed Christ. I don't think any that I've seen and other ones really came across in a way that was convincing to me. How would Christ present in certain situations? And I've read lots of this stuff about people that had encounters while he was alive, such as even Josephus. Josephus describes Christ as leaning up against a tree while talking with people in a very relaxed sense, and he was there, saw it, and so it's interesting to think about those types of portrayals. How would Christ have come across to you or me if we had come to him with a question, or watching how he interacted with people? Even like a city, he went to a city, and it says he was unable to do any great works there because of their lack of faith. What? Christ couldn't do a lot of miracles because the people had, no sense of faith. Faith is so crucial in that way, and he couldn't overcome that. It's pretty amazing. So, that's, the questions that are out there. It's a conversation, and but then you look at this role. Lots of people have their own impressions of what Christ would have been like or how he acted. In the case of Bolsonaro, we don't have a point of reference. And so he's first up, if you will, to try to give us, between the writers and the directors and everything else, a portrayal that gives us a point of reference of who this man is, what he went through, and what the truth is about a lot of what's gone on here. So I'm anxious to see it, and for us to have the conversation. It'll be pretty amazing.
Warren, I was share with Warren and Mandy, and we're over 400 people have already registered. We got over a month to go. I've talked to the Ahern to see how high we can go, but I think we'll blow through the 500 one.
Yeah, we've talked about that, and of course the fact that they're going to pull out the bar at the middle, which gives us a significantly more room. I don't want to be overcrowded, and so we've discussed this, you and I, and of course the folks over at the Ahern, and I think we're going to have a very comfortable event, but we're also probably going to go over that 500 by a bit. I will say this. You and I, Matt, but I probably more so have attended lots of different events around the country. The rallies, the things with just a wall of speakers and like that. We have tried to keep the number down so we could have more detail and real presentations from these speakers that are world class with with all the different categories of fraud we're trying to deal with. And I think that worked. We did the private conference last month and a half ago on the bond stuff, and I think it was very comfortable because we had time to talk individually with the speakers and between ourselves, and we got a lot more done. That's what this conference is really about. For example, we're catering all of the meals. Why do that? Because I want people to stay there and talk with other people there and not feel the need to go somewhere to have a conversation and to enjoy each other's company. So by having all the meals catered and not crap meals, I mean high quality meals, they actually get awards. The Ahern's one of the best in Vegas on their catering. So by doing that, we're going to be networking. And one of the most important aspects of the coalition has been the fact that we're a network of networks. We have multiple people within the coalition who themselves have a network that they work with, and they're our point of contact within those networks. And I mean, I can just go down the list, every one of them, either within some state operations, an agency operation, etc. So this network of networks has been unbelievable. I want to see that expand. In fact, what Trump said yesterday about an army of people to observe the elections and to make sure that these midterms are done safe, and now beyond that. Again, what he's describing is a network of networks, an army. And that's what the coalition is. It's been an amazing experience to get to work with so many different people who themselves represent a group of people, some larger, some smaller, for things that we're able to get done. So this meeting isn't just about coming and hearing and listening and, oh gosh, that was interesting, and go home. It's as much about getting to coordinate with and meet some really amazing people attending and developing more connectivity within all the networks we deal with. And then the speaker list is just off the charts. And I know that the speakers are going to be spending a lot of time with the people attending. Also, it's a community that everyone there power player. So it's going to be a lot of fun.
I've told many people in our group that it was really neat when I was on the scene in the, let's say, the Friday calls and understanding the coalition and things, that it was neat to see that there were other coalitions that I didn't necessarily know about. Of course, you did, and Matt did, and Mark did, and to find out how you were all collaborating for a long time. And I really wanted people to know, because a lot of people don't understand how that works, that when, Trump said, let's make America great again, there are citizens that went out there and did exactly that, started working on those things without saying, oh, I said that was going to happen. Oh, I said that was going to happen. They just put their head down and went to town, working their rear ends off, taking a lot of heat. And then we've got certain people that have come out and have walked us through that. It's a really neat ordeal. It's a really
the only other thing. Go ahead, Matt.
I was going to say, Juan, that something that I am very, very fond of is knowing the coalition. You're not going to hear, I did this, or I'm singularly responsible for it's we did, and how can I help you? And sometimes I think you see people in various domains, the hubris kind of goes to their head, and they become self-important. And no, the mission is what's important, you know, and the country is important. The republic is important. And I said on Bannon's show this afternoon, I said, Steve, so many people in this coalition walked away from jobs, going through the life savings. I know Juan has gone through a lot of money. Patrick Byrne has gone through a lot of money, singularly, those two. But other people have just put their lives on hold for 5-6 years just to solve this problem.
Amen.
Well, and I will say this. The people that I've spoken to, yes, it's been painful, because I think for many of us, me included, we had envisioned getting through this sooner than has taken place, and getting to certain checkpoints sooner than have happened. For most of us, it's an inconvenience, an added expense. For someone like Tina and some of the other people who are in legal peril, one of the conversations I had earlier today, a very serious situation involving a judge in one of the states who has gone against the machine and the things that have happened to him. I'm not going to complain in the slightest, knowing that others, such as Tina specifically, have paid such a high price. And then in her case, even beyond the rest of us, fortunately, Jen and I enjoy our health. We're young enough, I feel like, anything comes up, we still have a lot of time ahead of us to do different things. Someone like Tina, who is got the health challenges and the circumstances she's in, the cost is way beyond anything monetary. It's time in this world to do certain things, to accomplish things, to just enjoy life. And so I won't wince in the slightest. It would be an insult to others who are paying a much higher price to fuss over any inconveniences. Money can't buy what it has cost Tina thus far. And so, you think of superheroes.
I was going to say, well, she's already given a child for this country's defense. Her son. She's sacrificed her son.
some of these things, you don't have any say over it. It was a cost along the way. And so it's, somehow a sacrifice was involved, but it wasn't by choice. Even though he wanted to be who he is. He did stuff that he knew to be important. He got that sense of import very clearly from his mom.